Okay, South Africa, Brazil in Pool D, the Women's Rugby World Cup has just finished. South Africa have beaten the World Cup debutants 66 points to 6. It was 26-3 at half time, so I think South Africa laboured a little bit in that first half. They got out to a quick lead. They had two tries in 8 minutes, and then they laboured a little bit for a good 20 odd minutes. They laboured a little bit. Brazil were frustrating them defensively, and the second half, South Africa just explode and just score tries for fun. But that first half was a bit of a grind at times for South Africa. Even though their scrum was dominant and they had obviously the more physical, powerful players, Brazil scrambled well in defence, frustrated them a little bit. South Africa were making silly errors, silly handling errors, and trying to just force the play and just play yourself into the game. They had a try disallowed in the first half. In the end, it's actually a great tackle by the Brazilian defender to actually tackle the player into touch. It looks like it's a try, but actually that's a really good cover tackle. They've had a try disallowed right at the death as well for an obstruction. So even when they piled on the points and they're playing with a bit of freedom and expression, there's a few areas that they need to clean up on a little bit. You cannot doubt the Brazilians' commitment. They scored two penalties in the game. We've had a hat-trick for South Africans, number 8, Hele. It's not often you see a back row forward score a hat-trick. It's more common in the women's game than the men's game, but it's not often you see a back row forward score a hat-trick. But the scoring started early with Roos, the starting scrum half, after just 3 minutes. Latasha's try was disallowed because of that really good cover tackle where Malinga, the winger, has just taken a step into touch. And it was picked up by the TMO. That's the TMO doing their job really well. And Brazil obviously win the line out from that. But Hele gets her first try in 8 minutes. And then Kokan, the Brazilian fly half, slotted a penalty on 10 minutes. And then South Africa basically were frustrated and made a bit of a dog's breakfast of the next 20 minutes. They had a lot of the ball, a lot of the territory, but sloppy errors at breakdown, handling errors. And they just, the game lost a little bit of intensity for 20 minutes. And then Hele gets her second try on 30 minutes. And then South Africa, they eased into the game. Malinga gets her first try in 40 minutes. The second half is a demolition job. And you can see where the utilisation of the South African bench is important. The fatigue factor of the Brazilian players, all that defending they had to do. Hele gets a hat-trick on 43 minutes. Van Rensburg gets two tries in 4 minutes on 48 and 52. Nguevu gets a try in 63 minutes. And Malinga gets their second try in 75 minutes. And Makava on 79. And it became a bit of a procession in that second half. The use of the bench as well, where they basically brought on the female equivalent of the bomb squad, which is the term for the South African, when they utilise their bench with a 6-2 or 7-1 split of forwards and backs, and they just throw the subs on all at the same time. Malinga's try, that's disallowed right at the end. That is for an obstruction. It's a clear obstruction. And it's little things like that in a more tight game against, let's say, Italy or France could prove very, very crucial if that a try is disallowed for an obstruction. South Africa haven't won at a World Cup since 2010. So this is important for South Africa in building into the tournament. They've got a very powerful forward pack. They've got some very powerful outside backs and some players who've also played a bit of seven. So there's a bit of skill about this African side. This wasn't just a pure, power over them, over Brazil in that second half. Kokan's got the Brazilian fly half has got two penalties, one on 10 minutes, one on 56 minutes. The one on 56 minutes is from a fair distance out as well. Brazil had little flashes with the ball. They had little moments, but they didn't have much possession. They were doing a lot of defending, and look, it's good they got some points on the board. It's a bit disappointing they didn't get a try. You could clearly see the work rate and commitment was there. Obviously, the weakness is their scrum. The line-out's actually pretty effective. Defensively, even though they have conceded a lot of points, you can clearly see the defensive effort is there, and the willingness to work for each other as a team, but obviously there's a big gulf in experience and quality, and this is a big step up from where they have been as a developing nation to more established nations who've been playing at this level for longer. The women's game has got a long way to go to be on the same level as the men's in regards to quality level across the board, where developing nations like tier 3 and some of the lower ranked tier 2 nations can compete against some of these tier 1 nations and get upset victories and get points off them. But I think the Brazilians are here for the experience. They have got some good sevens experience, however. They've got a lot of players who have played sevens at Olympics. So we've got some Olympians in the Brazil side. So in that regard, they've got some experience. But as a 15-a-side nation and at this level, they haven't got a lot of experience as a test squad. They've only played a handful of test matches. I think it's 16 test matches in total or 12 test matches in total the Brazilians have actually played as a 15-a-side setup. So they haven't been playing full international rugby union for very, very long. And to be fair, they stuck in there. They defended well. The commitment was there. But you can see that the golf in class is massive. But they might give Italy and France a few issues in open, broken play. If the game breaks up a little bit, that might suit some of their sevens players. But South Africa, just a lot of power. South Africa, very stereotypical South African performance, power game. Power up front, wore them down in the first half. Although they did make heavy going of it in the first half. You would have thought South Africa scoring early, the floodgates would have opened. Brazil stuck in there for a good 20 minutes in that first half after the first two tries went over. Made life difficult, defended well, scrapped at the breakdown. Frustrated South Africa a little bit. South Africa started forcing the play, but they got exhausted, and you could clearly see that fatigue factor. They were absolutely out on their feet at the end. They'd done a lot of defending, but fair play to them. They'd stuck at their task, and it's a shame they couldn't get a try, but South Africa off to a good start. So there we go. That's Pool D opening round of fixtures done. The last game of the opening weekend is New Zealand-Spain, so we're going to look forward to that. But from me for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.